Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And Dynamite tonight, I thought it was a decent show, in my opinion. It wasn't their best show, wasn't great, but overall it was a decent show, in my opinion. So tonight we saw Matt and Nick Jackson versus the Hybrid 2, Jack Evans and Angelico. FTR versus Varsity Blondes. And we also saw Dustin Rhodes was in action, and he ended up taking on 10 of the Dark Order. We saw Eddie Kingston, the Butcher and the Blade versus Lance Archer and the Lucha Bros. Penta El Zero Miedo and Rey Fenix. And Abaddon was in action. She ended up taking on Tesha Price. And the main event, it was MJF versus Orange Cassidy. The winner got the AEW Diamond Ring. And also we had Sting speak tonight. And we had an appearance by Shaq. Yes, Shaquille O'Neal Shaq was on the show tonight. But overall, Dynamite was a decent show. So let's get on with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite ended up kicking off tonight with the Young Bucks versus the Hybrid 2, Jack Evans and Angelico. And this was a pretty decent match here. We had Angelico and Jack Evans end up attacking the Young Bucks during their entrance. They end up getting sent out to the floor. And Nick Jackson ended up doing a flip out to the floor. Took out both Jack Evans and Angelico. The Young Bucks then tried to double team Jack Evans. And he ended up getting dropped by the Bucks. And they ended up delivering a double drop kick. Angelico ended up coming in. Nick Jackson ended up delivering a top rope arm drag. He then hit a springboard arm drag to Angelico. Matt ended up tagging in, ended up delivering a slingshot leg drop to Angelico. He then booted Jack Evans off of the ring apron. And there was a point in the match where Matt Jackson ended up sending Jack Evans into the Acclaimed, who were sitting at ringside. And then we saw Nick Jackson ended up delivering a run knee to Angelico's face. Jack Evans ended up doing a 450 splash off the top onto Nick Jackson, which he went for the cover, and Nick Jackson ended up kicking out at 2. So then we had the Bucks end up delivering a double super kick to Angelico. And at the end of the match, we had Matt and Nick do a double super kick to Angelico. And then they delivered the BTE trigger. And then they went for the cover. And there you go. The Young Bucks end up winning the match. So Nick Jackson delivered that BTE trigger. So, but the Bucks end up winning. Post-match, we had the Acclaimed. They was going to jump in the ring, but out came Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian of SCU. They ran right out of there to stop the Acclaim from getting into the ring and being down on the Young Bucks. So that was that. But overall, the match itself, it was a decent match. And then we went backstage. MJF was shown with Wardlow. MJF ended up saying that he's going to hurt Orange Cassidy later on in the night. And that he's going to break a lot of Smart Mark's hearts. So that was what MJF had to say. And then we went to Darby Allen. And Darby Allen was taking this test where he sees, a drawing of someone that is similar to Brian Cage. And we got little clips of Team Taz there. So Darby Allen ended up saying that he's a puppet, that Brian Cage is a puppet, and that he's also the number one contender for the TNT Championship. So then we went and saw clips of Brian Cage, who previously ended up beating up on Darby Allen. And Darby Allen ended up saying that it's never been without help. So Darby Allen ended up saying that he's going to give Brian Cage a shot at the TNT Championship at some point. So then, this guy who's doing the test, he then shows a photo of Sting's face paint. And Darby Allen was just, chuckling, had a smile on his face. So now is that. But, we're going to be seeing Brian Cage versus Darby Allen where the TNT Championship is on the line. So that's going to be happening soon. But we all know that when that match happens, Darby Allen is going to retain the TNT Championship. So I think, so far Darby Allen is making, a good TNT champion. So that's my opinion. So then we had Cody Rhodes end up coming out to the ring. So Cody was joined by, of course, Arn Anderson. Tony Schiavone was also in the ring. And Tony ended up asking Cody about Sting come to the ring. So Cody was going to say something, and Sting's music ended up hitting that awesome music for Sting's entrance. And he came out. And, Sting's debut last week on Dynamite, what a moment that was. It was absolutely a great moment. Sting, debuting on Dynamite, signed a multi-year deal with AEW. Heard that he's going to be competing in the ring. But it's cool that Sting is with AEW. It was kind of a big, fuck you to WWE. Considering they wasted Sting when he was signed with them. What does Sting do in WWE? All he did was he debuted at Survivor Series in 2014, and then he went on and feuded with Triple H, had that WrestleMania 31 match with Triple H, and then he moved into rivalry with Seth Rollins, had the match with Rollins also. And that was basically that. He got injured after that. But really awesome that Sting is part of AEW. So we had Arn Anderson. He ended up getting on the mic. He ended up saying that he had to get a little closer just to make sure this was real. He ended up saying that he knows both guys have an agenda. So Tony Schiavone then offered up the mic, and he says, "Who is he to stay in the ring?" Sting then ends up telling him to wait. And Sting wanted a hug from Tony Schiavone. Sting then thanked Tony Schiavone, and he told Tony Schiavone to do, it's Sting, with Tony Schiavone's, famous, catchphrase when he's on commentary, it's Sting. So Tony Schiavone ended up doing that. He ended up doing a, it's Sting. So, but always good to hear Tony Schiavone do that. He did that years ago when Sting was with WCW, or when they both were in WCW. So then Cody then ended up welcoming Sting back. Cody ended up thanking Sting for the assist last week. And Cody ended up saying that he's been waiting to share the ring with Sting for a very long time. Sting then went on to say that he's not here for Cody. At least not right now. Sting ended up saying that there's something really familiar about this. Sting then ended up pointing up at Darby Allen. Darby Allen was shown sitting up in the stands. I always like when Darby Allen is out there. He's sitting out in the stands, and the camera, just points to him. Really cool. And then Sting ends up looking at the roster at ringside. He ends up saying that he's in the jungle and that he's glad to be back. Cody then ended up saying, like I said, sir, welcome back. And Cody did not have a happy look on his face. He actually looked disgusted. Like, why is Sting here? He had that disgusted look on his face, like. So Sting ended up saying that the only thing that is for sure about him is nothing. Nothing is sure. So he ended up mentioning being signed with AEW, and that he plans on being close to the promotion for a long time. So I think Sting is going to retire in AEW once he's done. Once he's done with his pro wrestling career. So Sting ends up saying how he chooses to play, and that's his business. And Sting ended up pulling Cody in. He ended up saying to Cody, "See you around, kid." So Cody then ended up looking a bit annoyed at Sting as Sting made his way to the back. And so that was that. But I thought this was enjoyable. This was very enjoyable. Let's see what Sting brings to AEW. But just by what we saw with Cody's look on his face, being disgusted and annoyed at why Sting is here. I think possibly he's going to set up, maybe Cody turned heel, and he's going to have maybe this team, which Cody's going to possibly end up fighting with Sting. There was also talk that Jericho wants to fight Sting in a match, which would be pretty awesome. So having Jericho versus Sting. Overall, the segment was awesome. It was very enjoyable. So then we saw Team Taz backstage. We had Taz, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Taz's son Hook. So Taz ended up talking about the special moment with Sting, Cody, and Darby Allen. Which, Darby Allen was, there of course, in the match last week because it was Cody and Darby teaming up. Taz then ended up bringing up another special moment of when Team Taz beat up Darby Allen and Cody last week. Starks then ended up saying that Hook, who was Taz's son, is now training with them. So Hook is training with Team Taz now because originally Cody was training with Hook. But now, like Ricky Stark says, now Hook is training with them. So then we had FTR versus Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. And this was a very short match here. FTR ended up working on the Varsity Blondes. Garrison ended up coming in. He was working on Cash Wheeler's arm. We had FTR then deliver a double suplex over the top rope onto Pillman. And FTR ended up getting the win. They ended up hitting the Goodnight Express on Brian Pillman Jr. They went for the cover, and there you go. FTR end up winning the match. Post-match, you had the Jurassic Express, who were at ringside. They were looking at FTR. Cash Wheeler ended up giving Jungle Boy a shove, and Marco Stunt ended up wanting to fight, but he ended up getting held back. So that was that. It looks like it's going to be FTR going one-on-one with two guys from the Jurassic Express. Jungle Boy or Marco Stunt. I think it's going to be, both of them going against FTR. Minus Luchasaurus from, Jurassic Express there. So I think it's going to be just FTR versus Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt. And so then we had Alex Marvez. Marvez was talking with Hangman Page about him having a match against Private Party and Matt Hardy. And it's going to be a 6-man tag. So, Hardy Party. You got to mention that. You can't mention, Private Party and Matt Hardy. They nicknamed themselves Hardy Party. So, Marvez ended up saying that Page doesn't have any tag partners at the moment. And then we had Alex Reynolds and John Silver, and they popped up from behind the bar. They were wearing cowboy hats, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, John Silver in a cowboy hat looked hilarious. So Page ended up passing on having Alex Reynolds and John Silver be his partners. But then Page ended up deciding to tag with them, and that he's not joining the Dark Order. So that was that. So that's officially announced for Dynamite next week. It's going to be Hangman and Page, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver taking on Matt Hardy and Private Party. Hardy Party in a 6-man tag next week. And then we had 10 of the Dark Order versus Dustin Rhodes, which this was a short match here. Match started off with back and forth between 10 and Dustin Rhodes. 10 delivered a boot to Dustin's midsection. He then hit a spine buster and booted Dustin out to the floor. And at the end of the match, you had Dustin Rhodes end up winning, ends up delivering a running bulldog to 10. So there you go. Dustin Rhodes ended up winning in a quick, short match. Post-match, we had Evil Uno. Evil Uno ended up yelling to cut the music. and he gets into the ring with the Dark Order on the other stage. Evil Uno ended up saying that he can't change their past, but they can improve their future. So Evil Uno was talking about Dustin's legacy and that his name comes with pressure. And he ended up saying here in AEW, he's the third most important Rhodes. So Evil Uno then ended up asking Dustin if he'll be 7 of the Dark Order. So Uno ended up saying, why do you say 7? So then Dustin ends up slapping Evil Uno in the face. The Dark Order end up charging in, but Evil Uno ends up telling them to stay back. So that was that. So we're going to get possibly Evil Uno versus Dustin Rhodes. So that should be coming up. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was sitting with Brandi Rhodes. Brandi Rhodes had her arm in a sling because of Jade Cargill's attack a few weeks ago. So Schiavone then ended up introducing Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal. Yes, Shaq appeared on Dynamite tonight. So Brandi didn't accept Tony Schiavone, or didn't appreciate Tony Schiavone, giving Shaq all these accolades, and that she barely got anything. So Shaq is just sitting there. He's just talking about Jade Cargill, saying that he's a big fan, and they've gone back a long way. Shaq ended up saying that he didn't appreciate what Jade Cargill did to Brandi's arm. So Brandi ended up saying that she would agree with that and felt like Jade came into her house and came at her people wrong. So Brandi ended up saying that she hopes we can stop this and nobody else gets hurt. So Tony Schiavone ended up bringing up to Shaq about him being on Dynamite. Shaq ended up saying that he's got a lot of love for the Rhodes family and that he'll be happy to see Brandi and Jade go at it. So Brandi ended up shaking hands with Shaq, and that she is glad that they can work things out. So Brandi then ended up going to leave, and Shaq ended up throwing a shot at Brandi's arm, and he ended up saying that maybe she can get some pointers from Jade Cargill. So Brandi ended up not appreciating that, and Brandi ended up saying that she's sick of this shit. So Brandi then tosses water on Shaq, and Brandi ends up calling Shaq an overgrown asshole. And then she walked out. And really, when she threw the water on Shaq, Shaq didn't even, move or, get a reaction. He just took it like a man there. Like it didn't even faze him. So that was basically that. And then we had the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle ended up making their way out. And Jericho was on the mic. Jericho ended up saying that this might be the last time fans see the Inner Circle because of what he said last week. He ended up saying what's been going on isn't what he wants. He was like, I want no more shoving, no more arguing. And Santana wasn't there tonight. Jericho ended up saying that Santana didn't even come to work and that he's so worked up. So Jericho ended up saying that if anyone has to air some grievances, to go ahead. MJF then gets on the mic. He says he loves all the guys and that all of them are like his brothers. He ended up saying, despite what social media says about him wanting to break up the group, he chose to be in the group. I mean, we all know why MJF is in the inner circle. I mean, he wanted to join it, but at the same time, you know that he's trying to break up the inner circle. And, there's talks about Sammy Guevara. I mentioned this before. AEW is planning points to turn Sammy Guevara into a babyface. So with that, the inner circle is going to be breaking up. But MJF then ended up bringing up Sammy Guevara wanted to throw the towel in on Jericho, as what we saw last week. But MJF ended up bringing the towel out first. Jericho then ended up saying that they actually watched Dynamite and saw what MJF did. So they actually saw MJF bring the towel out first. MJF ended up saying that he had sweat on his brow. So Ortiz ended up saying that MJF is growing on him like a fungus. So Ortiz told Sammy to shake MJF's hand. Ortiz then ended up telling Sammy that you're better than him, and you know it. Which MJF ended up laughing it off. Guevara ended up saying that he trusts Jericho. But he ended up saying that if one more thing happens, he'll quit the group. So then Jericho says, okay. Sammy Guevara and MJF then shook hands. Jericho ended up appreciating what everyone said and that he feels like they were all on the same page. So then Hager then ended up asking why Wardlow has been staring at him. Wardlow ends up calling Hager a creep. And Hager ends up saying that Wardlow is the creep. So Jericho then offered up the suggestion that they stop staring at each other. So Wardlow ends up stopped staring at Hager. Jericho ended up saying that everyone put their hand in the middle of the ring. Put their hand in the middle. And so everyone in the group did it. And then Jericho's music ended up playing, and that was that. So, but there you go. What Sammy Guevara ended up saying, that if something else happens, he's going to quit the group. So there you go. That's the setup there. If something happens in the group, that's the setup there for Sammy Guevara turning babyface. You got it right there. But I thought this segment was, okay, in my opinion. So then we went backstage. We had Alex Marvez. He was talking with FTR about their loss to the Young Bucks. Wheeler ended up saying that his emotions got the best of him, and that he cost them the titles. Tully Blanchard ended up saying that he wasn't there. So, the team, the full team wasn't there. Harwood ended up saying that they are still the best team on the planet, and their goal is to win back the World Tag Team titles. And he goes, fear the revelation. And then we had Eddie Kingston, the Blade, and the Butcher versus Lance Archer, Rey Fenix, and Penta El Zero Miedo, aka the Lucha Bros. Of course, Eddie Kingston, the Blade, and the Butcher came out along with Ali, aka the Bunny. This was a pretty decent match here. Lance Archer ran out. He leapt over the top rope and took out Kingston, Blade, and the Butcher. And they all were brawling. The Butcher then delivered a suplex to Penta El Zero Miedo through the Timekeeper's area, which Penta Penta was taken out of the match. He was helped to the back by officials, and the Blade and the Butcher end up working on Phoenix back in the ring. Allie, the Bunny, ended up getting involved. She ended up choking Phoenix over the edge of the ring apron. Kingston came in, and Phoenix was able to hit a springboard cutter on him. Lance Archer finally got in, delivered a full Nelson slam to the Blade, and then he ended up throwing the Butcher into the corner. Archer delivered elbows in the corner to the Butcher and the Blade. But in the end, Eddie Kingston, Butcher and the Blade ended up winning, where we had both the Blade and the Butcher deliver a powerbomb neckbreaker to Phoenix. So that was that. Post-match, Lance Archer ended up getting back into the ring, ended up taking out Kingston, the Butcher and the Blade. Archer was going to look for a chokeslam to Kingston. The Blade ended up hitting Archer in the back, and he ended up eating a punch and then the overhead release suplex. Lance Archer then ended up crushing the Blade in the corner. Archer was going for the blackout to the Blade, but the Butcher ended up saving him. So that was that. But overall, decent match. So then we went backstage into the locker room, and we saw Red Velvet. Red Velvet was getting beaten up by Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose. We had Big Swole and Serena Deeb coming in to make the save, but they then got shoved from behind by Ivelisse and Diamante, and officials end up coming there to separate all that. And then we went to Abaddon versus Tesha Price, which this was a very quick match. Abaddon ended up winning, so she ended up planting Tesha Price to the mat, and the match ended. So Abaddon ended up winning. Good to see her on TV, even though it was a short match. Post-match, Abaddon was throwing punches to Tesha Price. Hikaru Shida ended up coming out with a kendo stick. She got into the ring. Abaddon then ended up charging at Hikaru Shida, which Hikaru Shida ended up hitting Abaddon with the kendo stick to the head, which Abaddon was passed out. And then she sat up. Abaddon sat up, just like The Undertaker. So Hikaru Shida ended up getting Tesha Price, and they went on the stage. So that was that. But, it's going to be Abaddon versus Hikaru Shida. I think Abaddon is going to be the next AEW Women's World Champion. That's my prediction there. I think Abaddon is going to be the next AEW Women's World Champion. But overall, it was a short match with Abaddon and Tesha Price. So then we went backstage and we saw Dasha was talking with Chris Jericho. Dasha ended up asking about the Inner Circle being on the same page. Jericho ended up telling Dasha that they are indeed on the same page. Jericho then ended up saying that the group will join MJF and Wardlow at ringside to make sure that MJF will beat Orange Cassidy and get back the AEW Diamond Ring. So there you go. The Inner Circle is going to be at ringside during MJF and Cassidy's match. And then we went to Kenny Omega and Don Callis. And they both end up arriving to the Daily's place in a helicopter. And Tony Schiavone was waiting in the ring. And I did manage to watch the interview last night with Don Callis and Kenny Omega on Impact, which that was the only good thing on Impact last night. The rest was just boring. It was garbage. But, like I said, not a huge fan of Impact Wrestling. Watched it once, didn't care for it. Watched it last night, I just couldn't get into it. The only thing that was good was the Kenny Omega Don Callis interview with Josh Matthews interviewing them. But Marvez was trying to get a word with Kenny Omega, right off the bat. And Omega and Don Callis opt to go to the ring. Omega ended up coming out with his entrance. So him and Don Callis made their way into the ring. Tony Schiavone ended up asking a lot of questions to Omega. He ended up saying that he was disgusted with what happened last week. So Don Callis ended up getting on the mic. He says, well, the fans are also upset. He ended up saying even Tony Khan was upset. He ended up saying that Tony invited him in, made him feel welcome. And he ended up saying that Tony probably felt like he got screwed. So Don Callis was like, welcome to the business, kid. Don Callis ended up saying that they were cooking up a plan like this for years. Callis ended up talking about watching Kenny Omega become the best in pro wrestling. And he referred to himself as the Invisible Hand, which he then brought up Omega and Jericho's matches in New Japan and how big it was. And he said it may even had a hand in forming AEW. So then Don Callis then introduced Kenny Omega there because Omega was standing right next to Callis. Omega then took the mic. He ended up saying that they were able to pull off their plan perfectly. Omega ended up saying that everything he's done previously pales in comparison to having the AEW World Championship. He ended up saying that his match last week was fine art, and that it was inspirational. Omega then ended up saying that all the fans fell for the match. He ended up saying ultimately they just wanted Jon Moxley to fall for it, and that's where Don Callis came in. Omega ended up saying that there's so much more coming. So Callis ended up telling Omega to hold off on that. He ended up saying some people make matches, some make money, and that Kenny makes history. So Kenny then ended up doing a goodbye and goodnight sign off. And that was that. But Kenny Omega, AEW, he's the AEW World Champion. What I see, and this is my prediction, Kenny Omega is the AEW World Champion. I think he's going to have a match, and because he appeared on Impact last night, I think he may have a match, and he is going to drop the AEW World Champion, the AEW World Championship. If he does drop the AEW World Championship, I think he's going to face Rich Swann, who is the Impact World Champion. And I think Omega is going to defeat Rich Swann and become the Impact World Champion. That's how I see this going with Kenny Omega and what the plans are for. That's my prediction. May be wrong on that, but I sense that's where it's going to be going. I think Kenny Omega is going to be challenging for the Impact World Championship. So, but overall, this was a pretty good segment here with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. Like I said, the interview last night on Impact with Josh Matthews interviewing them, thought that was great. And then we had the stuff that we're going to see on next week's Dynamite. It's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Angelico, Hangman and Page, John Silver and Alex Reynolds versus Matt Hardy and Private Party, Hardy Party. That's going to be a pretty fun match. We're also going to be seeing the Acclaimed versus SCU, Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. And then Serena Deeb and Big Swole are going to be taking on Ivelisse and Diamante. So we're going to be seeing all that next week on Dynamite. And then they also announced their lineup, their holiday lineup. So Dynamite is going to be having a holiday bash on December 23rd, which they are going to be on after the NBA playoffs. So once again, the NBA playoffs are happening. Dynamite's probably going to be going on late. It's probably not going to be on at 10 o'clock. It's probably going to be on after 10, considering how the NBA playoff game that night is going to go. So, and it's not going to be live. It's going to be taped. The Holiday Bash is going to be taped for December 23rd. So that's going to be on the 23rd. And then on December 30th, they're going to be having night one of Dynamite New Year's Smash. And Jericho is going to be on commentary for the show. So after December 30th, the next week on January 6th is going to be night two of New Year's Smash. And then they introduced Snoop Dogg, who is going to be their guest for the January 6th night two New Year's Smash show. So there you go. That's the holiday lineup. What is in store for Dynamite? Like I said, I have expectations that the December 23rd Dynamite, the Holiday Bash, is not going to start on time. It's going to start after 10 o'clock, considering how late the NBA playoff game goes. So that's going to be annoying. With Dynamite not starting on time, considering how long the NBA playoff game goes. And then we had MJF versus Orange Cassidy. The winner receives the AEW Diamond Ring. This was the main event. Of course, MJF came out with the Inner Circle. Orange Cassidy came out with Chucky T, Chuck Taylor, and Trent. Of course, are the best friends. This was a pretty okay match here. We had MJF end up going right after Orange Cassidy as the bell rang. He was stomping away on Cassidy. He then took Cassidy's shades and breaks them. So MJF then delivered a suplex to Cassidy, went for the cover. Orange Cassidy kicked out at 1. MJF was trying to go for more pins, but Cassidy ended up kicking out of all of them. Cassidy ended up on the ring apron. He looked to go for the orange punch to MJF, but Cassidy ended up hitting the ring post. So on the floor, we had MJF end up putting Orange Cassidy's hands in his back pocket. Does the hammerlock slam onto the ring apron. And there's a point where MJF was being down on Cassidy, and he went for another pin. Cassidy ended up kicking out at 2. Cassidy then ended up getting dumped out to the floor by the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle started beating up on Cassidy. MJF then distracted the referee, and the Inner Circle ended up cutting off the Best Friends, and Sammy Guevara ended up throwing Cassidy into the ring post. And at the end of the match, you had MJF get the win because MJF ended up taking Jericho's bat. He had Jericho's bat in hand. He smacks the bat on the ground, and he ended up falling back. Cassidy then put his hands in his pocket. MJF then took the bat, and Orange Cassidy ended up flopping down, and the referee ended up looking back. Referee grabbed the bat and tossed it, and Cassidy then ended up laying a beach break, and he went for the cover. MJF ended up kicking out 2. MJF then smashes Orange Cassidy's hand. He was looking for an armbar, and he ended up snapping Orange Cassidy's fingers. And Cassidy then delivered a orange punch to MJF. He went for the cover, and MJF ended up kicking out of it. MJF kicked out of the orange punch. So Cassidy then ended up delivering the orange punch again to MJF. And he went for the cover, and Wardlow was there. Wardlow ended up putting MJF's foot on the rope. The referee ended up stopping the count. And we had a brawl on the floor with everyone. And then we see Miro and Kip Sabian end up running out. Miro got into the ring. He ended up delivering a lariat to Orange Cassidy, which Orange Cassidy ended up selling the hell out of that lariat. Miro and Kip Sabian then ended up putting their hands in their pockets. They were mocking Orange Cassidy. And I have to say, what was up with the shirt that Miro was wearing tonight? It was a Versace shirt. I think it said Versace jeans, Outlaws or something like that on his shirt. And I'm like, what kind of shirt was that he was wearing? So MJF was then able to drape his arm over Cassidy. So there you go. MJF ended up winning the match, and he wins the AEW Diamond Ring. He wins the Dynamite ring for the second year in a row, which, when this match was announced, I'm like, yep, the Diamond Ring is going back on MJF. Called it there. Post-match, we had Chuck Taylor and Trent, the Best Friends. They went after Miro, and we had security and the referees tried to separate them. And then Miro starts beating up the security. He ends up throwing one of the security off the stage. He ended up taking all of them out, Miro. And I'm like, we need to see this Miro. What we saw with him throwing these security guys off the stage. Where is this Miro? This means that Miro should break away from Kip Sabian, because when he's away from Kip Sabian, we could see this Miro that we saw at the end of Dynamite tonight. So MJF ended up telling the camera that he won, and he beat Orange Cassidy clean. So Miro ended up yelling from the stage, and that's how Dynamite went off the air. But overall, this match, was enjoyable. And Dynamite tonight, like I said, decent show. Wasn't their best show. Wasn't great, but it was decent. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned tomorrow, where I have another unboxing video, which I did earlier in the night tonight. So I pre-recorded it, so you guys are going to be seeing that tomorrow. So until then, see you all with the unboxing video tomorrow.